Very much so. It differs different, based on the type of business that you have. There's plenty of guides out there, a lot of information out there on the internet, okay? A traditional plan basically has maybe 9 segments to it, but ultimately, as a business, some of those might not be applicable to you, okay? So you kind of have to hone in on your specific need, things that are applicable to you, focus on that. And with a traditional business plan, what you see is there's a little bit more to it. Okay, you're kind of going into that detail. It's not just necessarily, a couple line thing. You're providing good detail on various components to that plan. Yeah, so I think the first one that you generally see, when it comes to business planning, is sort of an executive summary. And really what that's going to lay out, it's going to lay out what's your company all about. What is your company's mission? Okay, what is the product that you're selling? What are you doing? You got to explain yourself a little bit. Explain your resume and what you bring to the table. Okay. Those things are very critical. You're going to want to touch on, okay, we're going to be located here, we're going to be servicing here, high level, in this executive summary, number of employees, things of that nature. So that's some of the things that you're going to detail, in an executive summary. It's probably really one of the more important components of the business plan, because if I'm starting to read a business plan and it's not catching me right away, then you're going to lose them. You're going to lose your reader throughout the rest of that business plan. So really, that's a high level. Generally in there too, you might be putting in what you're actually maybe going to be asking for, and then detailing it further on in the business plan. So if there's a financing request on maybe what you're seeking, you would sort of, include that within that executive summary, portion of their. Going to mention, you're basically your targeted consumers, and people that you're going to be sort of targeting, with this business that you're detailing. So that part of it can be, a little lengthy, but it's very, in my mind, very important, to basically make sure you're touching all your high level bases, from that executive summary portion. Yeah, and that's where you can kind of dive in, as far as the company description, a little bit further on the industry, that you're dealing with, and what your company's all about, and your consumer base, and that's really where you're going to kind of target, the businesses and the communities, the people that you plan to serve, with that business plan, so that's kind of where you kind of go a little bit further, I would say, into the detail of the company versus the executive summary. Yeah, so hopefully they understand the market that they're going to be serving, okay? They've done their research. They know their competitor base, okay? Ultimately, when you're entering, a market or with a product or something, you sort of have to understand what's going to differentiate you from the other folks, okay? What are your strengths and weaknesses compared to your competition in that marketplace? So it's sort of like, a SWOT type of analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? So, ultimately, you're analyzing, those competitors, where's your price points, what's different, what are you going to do better, in that process that's going to capture market share, ultimately. So, that's a pretty important, component is knowing your competition, in market and how you're going to compete. Ultimately, you've got to kind of decide, okay, what kind of company are we going to be? Okay, are we going to be a corporation? How many employees are we going to have? Is it going to be an S Corp, a C Corp? Am I just going to be a sole prop? Maybe it's just, yourself running that company, or an LLC. So there's legalities of things from an organizational standpoint are important. And that's where, they really should, talk with some experts, some professionals, legal folks, accountants on, the type of business that you're going to run and what type of organizational structure, ultimately you should have, so, that'll dictate that, along with, ultimately, An organizational chart is important if it's going to be a layered type of company. Who's in management? What's their experience? So that's ultimately what you're going to be providing in that organizational portion of this write-up. Being very detailed, especially if it's going to be a company that's going to be decent in size or it's an existing company. Tell the depth of the management, because ultimately, from a bank's perspective, we want to know what that management staff looks like. Okay, what kind of experience do they have? How are they going to help, with this, product or business or whatever they're doing. So, understanding that, is very important. Yeah, certainly they're going to touch on, say it's, how are you going to manufacture, your product, are there copyright issues? Is there patent issues? Variety of different things can come into play based on the type of business that you're dealing with, on that timeline. But in here too, you're going to really be talking about, okay, how much does this cost us to do this? Detail, hey, this is the process, this is what it costs us, this is, maybe talk about some margins on profitability and things, on what you're providing there. But, ultimately it's, telling your story about the manufacturing process, if it's a manufacturing type of company, and kind of A to Z, how you're walking through that process. So it's as detailed as maybe that business, is ultimately required to be.